Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining. We're just waiting for maybe we'll just give a couple of more minutes to see if more people can join, and then we'll begin right away. Thank you. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Namo Aniruddhaya Hrishikeshendriyatmane Namah Paramahamsaya Purnaya Nivrittatmane Swarga Pavarga Dwaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Namah Namah Hiranyaviryaya Chaturhotraya Tantave. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's the 12th of March and Thursday, and we are beginning our third session of sharing the glories of the holy name, Sri Harinam Cintamani. Last week, just for a very quick recap, we stopped at the point where we talked of the mood in which Srila Haridas Thakur began the rendering or sharing on Sri Harinam Cintamani. He received orders from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to speak on the glories of the holy name because he was the Namacharya, the designated Acharya of the holy names of the Yuga Dharma. And as soon as he received the orders, he began to cry and weep in real humility because he understood that he was not qualified. That was his understanding, even though he was appointed as the Namacharya. So he begged for mercy from Sriman Mahaprabhu, clasped the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu to his chest, and begged for mercy, saying that everything is going to be spoken by the Supreme Lord himself, but he is only going to be an instrument. So, in other words, he did not allow his sentiments or emotions of feeling unqualified to interfere with the objective of carrying out the service. He carried out the service, but started out by first requesting empowerment. So the Lord, when he gives an order, empowers one. And when someone who is ordered obeys the order or takes it upon themselves, they receive power. So this is the act of empowerment. So the Guru requests us to chant 16 rounds. So when we take up the order of the Guru upon our head, then we receive power to chant 16 rounds. That is the process of being initiated into Harinam. So first the Guru orders, and because we follow the order, we receive power to chant. So in the Guru's order, in Mahaprabhu's order, there's power. And that Shakti, that power, comes and enables one to act upon the order efficiently. So we are dependent completely on the power that is given by the Lord to carry out services. Kripa. So Haridas Thakur, in a similar mood, begged for mercy and begged for qualification to be able to glorify or speak on the glories of the holy name. And his idea was to be able to be an instrument in this service so that the Lord could use him to speak and glorify the holy names. So this is where we stopped. We stopped on the mood of receiving empowerment from the Acharya, empowerment from the Guru. Now, this week, what we will be doing is we will be covering or giving and sharing a little bit about the goals of bhakti. What exactly are we looking for? What exactly is the goal of someone who is wanting to develop pure bhakti? what is the difference between bhakti, or the goal of bhakti, versus the goal of a jnani versus the goal of a yogi? Because that knowledge is going to be a prerequisite for us to move forward. So first, let us take an example. A good example would be that if we were to, for instance, go to a very famous temple, let's say New Vrindavan in America. Most of us have been there. Now, in New Vrindavan, in the US, where we sit down and we wait for, let's say it is 12 noon, and they are serving or preparing Rajbhog. And this Rajbhog is, they say it's 56 dishes if it is Chapan Bhog, but Rajbhog is pretty elaborate. So we understand by the timing that they're going to offer Rajbhog. So the pujari sets up the screen so that no one can see the offering. So sometimes you have an understanding that the moment the screen is put, it is 12 o'clock in the noon, and they're making an offering to the deities, the noon offering. This idea comes into our mind. And then sometime there are some of us who have passed by through the kitchen. You see, while we are trying to serve, we pass by the kitchen in New Vrindavan, and some of us have some knowledge that today they are serving, puris. They're serving a certain kind of halwa. They're serving certain kind of sabji or certain kind of, pakoras, and so on and so forth. We develop an idea because we pass through the kitchen and we either see or we smell. Our senses are able to perceive that there are certain dishes which are being cooked for the purpose of offering bhoga to the deity at 12 noon. Right? And then there's a third category who is actually cooking and who is offering. Now, this is the third category. So in the first category, we saw that there are those who are visiting the temple and who see his screen, and they have some perception and they have knowledge that an offering is going on. This is truth. This is sat. There is truth to it. There is an offering going on behind the screen. There's no doubt. And then there are those who have gone past the kitchen or who have an acute sense of smell. They are able to catch a whiff of what is being offered, and they come to a conclusion that puris are being offered, or halwa is being offered, or pakoras are being offered, and this is the kind of, dessert and so on and so forth. They reach an understanding because they have either smelt it or they have seen it. They have an understanding because they have seen the bhoga. And this is the category of chit. Chit is knowledge. But then there is a third category who are cooking, who are also, kind of participating. They cut the vegetables and so on and so forth for the bhoga. And then there is the pujari who is actually preparing the plate, and he's offering to the deities, and he's chanting mantras, and he's chanting his Gayatri as the deity is accepting the bhoga. Now, this category, which is the third category, is the category which really experiences complete ananda. Why? Because their senses are engaged in the process of offering, in the process of cooking, in the process of many other things. Okay? Now, in the first two categories, the first category, there was just knowledge. And that knowledge is Sat Vaibhava. That is Sat. There is truth in it. Okay? There is no duality. There is truth in the fact that bhoga is being offered. There is Sat. In the second category, people knew what was being offered, and there is Chit, knowledge available. So there is truth there on what is being offered. Okay? And in the third category, there's actual participation and there's experience of bliss, Ananda. Now, Sat, Chit, and Ananda, in the first goal of Sat, where one realizes what is true and what is not. One goes above the sense of duality. One rises above the material platform, has understood what is material, what is spiritual, and he decides that I need to get out. And he understands and has an aspiration of leaving this planet and going above, or leaving material creation and crossing the Viraja river and going above. Such a person is the Jnani. He has an aspiration of mukti, liberation. In the second category is the yogi, whose aspiration is knowledge. To a large extent, it is knowledge. He experiences bliss, but not to the extent of the third level. He experiences bliss. There is bliss in the first category as well, of being liberated from material energy. This bliss pales in comparison to having a view of the Paramatma, That is the yogi's perception. And we gave this comparison of these are people who knew what bhoga was being offered. They knew. But then there is not much ananda. They are perceiving ananda, saying, okay, if they are sincere souls, saying, oh, wonderful, there's a big feast. Krishna is being given a wonderful big feast. This is perception. But then this ananda is better than the fellow who is sitting in the room, in the temple room, and he knows that there is bhoga being offered, and he is in the temple room, which is much better than being in the city. But his comparison, his happiness pales in comparison to the person who knows what is being offered. But the third category is the actual bhakta. The bhakta is the one who uses his limbs and is able to render personal service to the deity, and he experiences ananda, because there cannot be ananda or the full extent of ananda in the first two cases. It is missing because the experience does not involve the limbs. Srila Rupa Goswami very clearly says that limbs have to be involved in us to be able to render devotional service. It's an important point. Now, why did I speak of these three? I talked about Sat, Chit, and Ananda, and I spoke of the goals of Jnani, goal of a yogi, and goal of a bhakta. These are three categories, three different levels of goal that we want to render service. Srila Rupa Goswami defines pure devotional service. It's a very famous verse, and it is Anya Bilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadi Anavratam, right? Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam Bhakti Uttama. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam Bhakti Uttama. This is the definition of Uttama Bhakti by Srila Rupa Goswami. Now, what does this mean? He says, Anya Abhilashita Shunyam. There can be no other Abhilasha, but they're using the word Abhilashita to include that it is okay in certain times to call out for help, especially if the life is under danger. So it is okay. And even if someone is rendering pure devotional service, and if they're attacked by a tiger, for instance, or a lion or whatsoever, it is okay to call out for help. Anya Bilashita, it is okay. Survival is okay. There's a little concession being given. Jnana Karmadi Anavratam, completely free of the objectives of Jnana Kanda and Karma Kanda. Both. Anukulyena, favorable. Kamsa was also meditating on Krishna. Sishupala was meditating on Krishna. It was not Anukul, it was Pratikul. Anukulyena, where it was very favorable meditation, aspiration to serve Krishna. Right. Krishna Anushilanam, following when wanting to serve Krishna. And that is the definition of Uttama Bhakti. Now, this is the definition of Uttama Bhakti. But then Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, and in 7.16, he says, Chaturvida bhajante mam janah sukritino arjuna arto jigyasur artati jnanacha bharatarishava. So the translation given by Srila Prabhupada, O best among the Bharatas, 4 kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desirer of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the absolute. So, what is this verse talking about? It talks about 4 kinds of pious men. In other words, these are men who are going to accumulate piety. They are going to accumulate wealth. Piety is wealth. It is subtle, but it is wealth. They're going to accumulate piety. They're going to accumulate powers. They're going to accumulate the Shakti which is required for them to move ahead. Okay? Now, what is it which they talk about? They're talking about pious men, and they're talking about Chaturvida. They have very clearly distinguished the pious men. They're saying that one category would be distressed. Someone who realizes that this place, he's going to have a body which is sick, and he wants to be relieved of the sick body. Health. He needs health. And in reality, there's no such thing as a healthy body. Every body is only in the progress of being destroyed, no matter how healthy you are. So the only way someone could get a healthy body is to leave the planet and progress on and receive a body which is superior. So this category of people who want a better body would be promoted to the heavenly planets. But they approach Krishna for it, which is a great, it's a great thing. It's a great thing. They approach Krishna for it. They are approaching Krishna, right? And they are approaching Krishna. They are not approaching the demigods, so which is a big deal. So they are called pious, but they fall in the category of those who approach the Lord. And then you have the category of those who are seekers of wealth. Real wealth does not exist on this planet. There's no such thing as wealth in this planet. Right? The conception of wealth in this planet is extraordinarily broken. It's perverted. And it has just gotten worse each year. Right? Real wealth does not exist. So those who are desirous of good health and desirous of wealth, they may approach Krishna offering him prayers, which is much better than someone who is going to the demigods for the same purpose. Okay? Now, the third category is the one who is seeking knowledge. He is seeking knowledge, right? Jigyasur. And then the last category is Jnani, one who is searching for knowledge of the absolute, the inquisitive and the knowledge of the absolute, three different categories. So the first two categories or last two categories are karma and jnana, mishra, bhakti. Mishra is mixed. It is mixed with the objectives of either wanting to resolve karma, which is their own karma and they have desires, and they want to engage in activity with certain fruits in mind. Phala. So this is karma mishra bhakti. They are prostrating, they're falling at the lotus feet of the Lord, they're engaging in some kind of service, they're engaging in yajnas, pujas, so on and so forth. But it is done with the objective of wanting to alleviate either sickness or wealth, to obtain wealth. So it is karma mishra bhakti. Those who are inquisitive also have the same objective, more or less. The last part, the jnani, is somewhat better, and he is superior to the karmis because he is not desiring that which is available in the material sphere. He is desiring liberation. So the karmis or the karmakandis are desiring fruits which are available in the material universe, and the jnani is desiring that which is beyond the material universe, so he is a shade better. First category, they are desiring bhukti. The second category, they are desiring mukti. Right? But Krishna calls both these categories of men magnanimous. He is not belittling them. He is calling them magnanimous because these are also bona fide paths of being able to move forward. Right? You have Dhruva Maharaj having the objective of wanting to attain is the superior position or equal position to his brother, stepbrother. So he started out with an objective of wanting to be able to sit in a kingdom, to be able to rule and so on and so forth. Right? This is karma mishra bhakti. But then it progressed on and he became pure by the mercy of Sri Narad Muni. So there is scope. In other words, one starts by accumulating piety with certain objectives, but that piety, by the mercy of the Lord, becomes a secondary route to attaining Shuddha Bhakti, to attaining Bhakti, or engaging in pure devotional service. It's a secondary route, not primary. The second category is the Jnani. The Jnani is one who is wanting to attain and move away from this world. Mukti is the objective. It is not pure. That's why Rupa Goswami is very clear. Srila Rupa Goswami says, Jnana karmadi anavratam. Neither karma nor jnana can be objectives. Karma kanda or jnana can be objectives because either of these would disqualify that activity from being termed as pure bhakti. So in the second category, the jnani who wants mukti because he considers the material world to be problematic, which is true, and he wants relief. He wants just to move away from the duality because he understands everything to be false and he wants to experience the truth, is in jnana kanda. And such a person, the jnani, is considered superior to those who are engaging in karma kanda, but eventually he is asking for something. There's an objective other than wanting to engage in pure devotional service. As a consequence, it is not considered to be pure bhakti. So jnana karmadi anavratam. So this particular verse, this category of two persons, they are disqualified. But there is piety which is coming up from both of these. So there is karma unmukha Sukriti, there is Jnana Unmukha Sukriti. But then the third category of Sukriti, which Srila Haridas Thakur is talking about in Sri Harinam Cintamani, is the category of Sukriti which is born out of coming in touch with the exalted devotees of the Lord. So there is an example where during Chaturmasya, Sri Narad Muni served the exalted sages who came to visit. And by serving or wanting to serve the exalted sages who came to visit, and by ensuring that he could accept the remnants left by them, he was engaging in associating with very exalted souls, and that became the impetus or the drive for him to move ahead. This is Sukriti, but this is Sukriti which comes out of engaging in Bhakti. But it is called Agyata Sukriti because the objective is not fully known. Okay, so now we spoke of three different types of Sukriti. The first type of Sukriti is the Karma Unmukha Sukriti, that which the Sukriti or the power that is obtained by engaging in karmakandic activities. One obtains power, one rises higher, and normally the objective results in Salokya Mukti, which is being able to first enjoy in the Swarga or the higher planetary systems, and then having an opportunity to proceed higher and engaging in residing in the same planet as the Lord, residing in Vaikuntha, Salokya. It is not personal, it is Salokya, being in the same planet. You can imagine the Vaikuntha planet is not the size of Edison. These are very vast tracts of land. So being in the same planet as the Lord and having facilities and having a body, so on and so forth, is Salokya Mukti, but it is not personal. And in the second category of Jnanis, they are considered to be better. And the Jnanis, they say, attain Shanta. They serve the Lord in Shanta Rasa. There is cognizance, but it is in Shanta Rasa. Okay? In other words, the piety or the Jnanonmukha Sukriti that's obtained results or gives impetus and gives strength for the personality who is pursuing such a path to ultimately be able to move forward and be able to attain the position of a Shanta Bhakta, engaging in Shanta Rasa. Now, the third category is the category which is considered to be superior by Srila Haridas Thakur. And he's talking about Sukriti that is made available through the engagement of our senses in the service of exalted personalities or pure Vaishnavas, the pure devotees. And by engaging ourselves in the service of pure devotees unknowingly, Agyata Sukriti, because the objective is not known, it is not a practice which is being done with clear objectives. That Agyata Sukriti allows one to ultimately develop Shraddha and to move forward and be able to obtain pure devotional service. And the pure devotional service ultimately leads to being able to participate in the more primary rasas of Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. This is the classification given by our acharyas in terms of the kind of Sukriti, which is power, and the power then can be used to attain certain objectives, some material, some spiritual, but not without motive. And then finally, one that is completely free of jnana and karma, but one wants to serve for the purpose of wanting to serve, right? And such pure devotees attain more personal service to the Lord. Okay, so now this is just a description of the objectives. One needs to understand that you have to be practicing at the level of what Srila Rupa Goswami defined. And he defined the practice as Anya Bilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadi Anavratam, Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam Bhaktir Uttama. This is Uttama Bhakti, where Jnana and Karma become secondary, and then you pursue, or rather, they are not the goal, they're completely free. This is Bhakti which is completely free of such motives. This is Bhakti which is completely free of all motives, and the only objective is that I want to serve. I want to serve. I want to serve. Okay? I'm not going to look to be liberated. I'm not going to be looking to receive something from you. I just want to serve you. This is pure devotional service. And this devotional service comes about by is given as a gift, or one is able to chant and one is able to practice this level of pure bhakti, and it is given as a gift when one comes in touch with the, as they say in Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhakti Vedantas, which is our Prabhupada's title is Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, but he writes in the Bhagavatam as well that these are exalted personalities who are pure devotees who are able to provide, and they're carriers of the potency. They're able to provide Shraddha. Because Shraddha, faith, it's not an artificial process. Shraddha, faith, comes from being able to come in touch with potency. Shraddha, faith, is someone who has Shraddha, has the ability to put Shraddha in our hearts. First, there has to be a Shraddha. So serving such a person, even Agyata, produces potency where we are able to move forward in the subsequent births and there's opportunity for service. I can give you a couple of examples which I think would qualify, where very, very nice examples, but where we should think that these were nice opportunities for these souls. There was this particular instances where devotees used to say that Srila Prabhupada sometimes used to travel around the world, and in many cases they did not have the resources or the time to take care of adequate arrangements for prasadam for Srila Prabhupada on the flights. And as a consequence, when they get on the flight, and they would just refuse all the meals offered in the airline because they had no motivation to eat non-prasadam. And the air hostess, one of them, I remember reading somewhere in one of the narrations, I think by Sri Shrutakirti Prabhu or Harish Sauri Prabhu, I'm not sure which, where one of the air hostesses saw Prabhupada as being extraordinarily distinguished and divine person. She had the motivation in her heart that this was someone divine, and she just came and asked as to what he would like to eat. And when he said fruits, even though I think they were traveling by economy, she went to the first class cabin, made an arrangement of all kinds of fruit platters and brought it and then gave it to Prabhupada so that Prabhupada could eat. Apparently, that air hostess became a devotee. This is Agyata Sukriti, where you come in touch with a pure devotee of the Lord. You do not know what you're going to gain from it. Okay, but you render devotional service because you're rendering service to such a person. You come in touch with them. And then this Agyata Sukriti has so much power, and it is even more powerful than the Sukriti obtained through Jnana and the Sukriti obtained through Karma Kanda, that this person, or whoever it is, who can come in touch with a pure devotee is able to engage in devotional service. You also can look at many different examples, for instance, of someone pulling, or the policeman pulling the Rath Yatra cart, trying to move it out of the way so that traffic could pass. We have seen it happen several times during Rath Yatra, right? Or someone just getting attracted by just looking at Jagannath and thinking that they could come and do something, and then they render some offer some kind of service. We see that all the time, where devotees, where people get just motivated by seeing the Lord and they want to render some service, right? This is Agyata Sukriti because they do not have knowledge. They really don't possess knowledge. They don't really know the technicalities of what they're doing and how powerful it is and what they're engaging in. But then they're motivated from within by the super soul because they happen to have nice desires, proper desires, and they engage in service. And this service in turn catapults them and pulls them into, and gives them an opportunity for Anyabhilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. Right? So it's a phenomenal opportunity which just comes by spreading the mission or allowing people to participate in the mission in one way or the other. If they use their limbs and they do not have proper objectives, in the sense, they don't have either Karma Kanda or Jnana Kanda objectives, then it becomes Agyata Sukriti. They just want to assist because they are motivated and they want to assist. It's phenomenal. So that is the third category, and Srila Haridas Thakur classifies that Agyata Sukriti obtained by rendering devotional service is indeed superior to either Karma Kanda or Jnana Kanda or anything that is associated with motives. So he talks about the three different goals. So we now have an understanding that this is exactly how one can come in touch with devotional service. And now we also know what is it which we have to aspire for. We have to aspire for Anya Abhilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadi Anavritam, Anukulyena, Krishna Anushilanam, Bhakti Uttama. Now, this can happen after the process of coming in touch with devotional service, engaging in bhajana kriya after developing shraddha, and then one is able to engage in the process of giving up anarthas, anartha nivritti, and then one becomes fixed in devotional service as their own eternal identity becomes, starts unfolding. So these are different levels. So the point which we wanted to make was that this is an extraordinarily technical, scientific process. And Srila Haridas Thakur first defines the goal, and then he starts talking about deficient ways to get there, or rather what is not going to work, and he talks about what really works. Okay, he gives two different categories. So I think we'll stop here and see if we have any questions. It's 9:33. So thank you. Yes, Akhilesh Prabhu. I do not know your question yet. Perhaps. I don't see your question, so perhaps I am here to type it. So the question is, it's related to service. If someone is interested in a type of service, is that still pure, or is there some motivation? It is still pure as long as we are also ready to accept service which comes our way, which we may not fully appreciate or be interested in. Okay? It is pure. There's nothing wrong with saying that I'm interested in offering a certain kind of service. There's nothing wrong with it. But the whole idea is to make ourselves available in the mindset that I'm here to serve. I have no other objective other than wanting to serve. How is a different issue, because that's got to be done on the basis of propensity. Srila Prabhupada engaged people on the basis of propensity. He just simply did not blindly make everyone do everything. He made sure that people were engaged based on their propensity to bring forth the best of their abilities. Okay? But then what is the fundamental point which we wanted to make was that we have it in our mind that we want to serve. That's it. We do not have objectives of wanting to gain something from such service. We don't have objectives of wanting to be relieved of some suffering due to that service, or just to be attaining knowledge that, okay, I understand that this is false, but what is true? That is knowledge, which is the Jnana Kanda and the Jnana Mishra Bhakti, of wanting to read scriptures for the purpose of understanding what is true, but not for wanting to improve service. Okay? So this will not interfere if we have some motivation to serve. No, it will not interfere. But the thrust is to be able to openly serve. So I'll take a second question. As practicing devotee, are we not accumulating sukriti of combination of karma, jnana, and bhakti because of the fact that we came with different conditioning? Agreed, yes. As practicing devotees, specifically in the Grahastha ashram, there will be a greater propensity of karma, karma mishra bhakti, because we have requirements. We live in the material world, and as a consequence, we have certain requirements, certain demands, and so on and so forth. So there will be a propensity in the ashram, based on the ashram, for a certain kind of bhakti, a certain kind of engagement. And that propensity, over a period of time, will get purified. Okay, it will get purified, but it would be there, yes. And will there be jnana? Yes, because we also come with such backgrounds. It is not by accident that some devotees just aspire for and want just to be known as pandits, or to be known as shrutidas, or to be known as someone who is very knowledgeable, and so on and so forth. Because these aspirations also come from previous samskaras. They also come from a lack of purity. Now, Srila Rupa Goswami talks about it, and he says that it is anya vilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavrtam. Both of these are problematic. Okay, they do not define pure bhakti. But is it happening? Yes. Is bhakti without motivation happening along with this? Yes. All three. The idea is to segregate and slowly give up karma and jnana, which is karma kanda and jnana kanda, and be able to exclusively focus on uttama bhakti. And that comes along with completely being able to give up anarthas. Anarthas are nothing but unwanted desires, which are stumbling blocks on the path of devotional service. And once we give up anarthas, then we receive the gift of being able to know who we are, or have some definition, so that we can become fixed under Krishna's service. And then we start moving forward, being able to develop momentum. And even during all of this, there is still some amount of karma kanda and some amount of jnana kanda, but it is at a subtle level. It's very subtle. It is not gross, as in the case with anartha nivritti before becoming fixed. And then finally, one reaches the ability to have real taste in chanting the holy names, and then being able to move forward and being able to develop higher levels of sentiment and emotions towards the Lord, which then ultimately reaches the goal of being able to engage in prema bhakti. Any other question? Okay, I need all of you to vote on Facebook. I need not vote, I'm sorry, offer your opinion. I want to see if we can move the class up to 8 o'clock, 8:30. There have been a couple of opinions. I want to take a consensus and be able to offer the session a little earlier if possible, because some devotees are facing difficulties in being able to wake up for their services, Mangalarti. So they just want to be able to do this a little earlier, and I just want to see if all of you are in agreement, and what time would be suitable. Would it be 8? Would it be 8:30? Or whatever the case may be, right? So please give me one of these options so that we could work to accommodate the larger group. So if there are no more questions, I'll stop here, and we'll again meet on Monday to further this discussion. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.